next week, I'm going to bring out the A.G.E pill. And this is the A.G.E pill. You've heard about it. I've been talking about it. We have received all of the components as of yesterday to make it. There are some exotic ones, and there are some of them that are extremely expensive. And I put them together in a mega formulation to accomplish what has always in the past been a fantasy, the fountain of youth, like a fairy tale. This is as close to the fountain of youth, I believe, as we can ever come, unless the dear Lord stepped in and did something. But let's look at this thing in perspective from where we're at. And I want to tell you a few things about it. Because when we unleash this, and I would have released it this week, but one of the difficult ingredients to get has to be specially compounded for us. It's right out of the future from scientific research. And I have to be very careful with everything that we're doing. So we're crafting together a presentation so that you can use it, and it will be not only user-friendly, but they're also, because of these great scientific discoveries that have been made, there are patents made on some of these ingredients. Now, they're use patents. Use patent means that an ingredient is used for something unique that's never been done before, and therefore it can be patented. No one can patent a natural ingredient of itself. You can patent a synthetic molecule like drugs do. That's why the pharmaceutical drugs don't use natural ingredients, because they can be duplicated by somebody else, even if they don't make the claims. A company could say, well, here's the ingredients in this formulation in ours, and that's the way it is. So people have seen the tremendous potential. I mean, tremendous doesn't even begin to talk about what this product can do. So because of that, there are the most crushing patents, not just crushing, but all-inclusive. So much detail. We've had to work with patent attorneys on everything to be able to get around some of this, and we can legally. We can get around it because these are God-given ingredients, every one of them, and with them comes tremendous results. And what we've done with this formulation is we'll make certain claims, but we can't make it upon some of the ingredients that are in it. It's a lot like TSX, if you know that formulation. There's another company out, and they have a patent on one of the ingredients that's in our product, in our TSX, to increase the amount of telomerase that is produced within a stem cell so that it can rebuild telomeres. Well, they have that use patented, but we can put it in our product, and the key word which you all should write down is support. So we have that ingredient in our products, but we can't make a claim that it increases telomerase because that's a patented one. So what we can do is say that it that it supports telomeres to maintain them, to keep them healthy and viable. It's the same ingredient, but what we say about it, now we have others too on top of that, and they've even contacted us about their patent, and they said they think our products are in violation of their patent, and we said, well, they're not, and they wanted to know our formulation and what we said every ingredient did, and we said, we don't have to say what every ingredient does. The product is what it is. We looked at your patent. We don't violate your patent. We know what not to say, what claims not to make, and we're not making them. But we have a product that's 3 or 4 times more powerful than theirs for telomeres, and other ingredients they don't consider using because the ingredient itself is very expensive. And then my product sells for half of what theirs does. So these are things that are important for you to know, and that's why I wanted to come on the call today and explain some of it so that you'll know things we can talk about in some cases have to be generalized. It supports this. It supports that because there are patents on ingredients that we can't violate. Now, this formulation is a collaboration of discoveries that have been made, and some of these going back quite a while, and put together. This is one product which I can truly say the total is greater than the sum of all its parts. And that's something you might want to write down. Now, all of its parts are listed. All of its parts will have a scientific page that you can refer back to, but it can't be. It is in compliance with what we call, here in the United States, and for those of you that are in other countries, you generally have something similar, but not always. See, like the EU really doesn't. But what we have a law called the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act. We call it DSHEA, D-S-H-E-A. Those things you ought to write down. What DSHEA says is there was a time in the early 1990s whereas Big Pharma and Big Medicine thought they had enough muscle that they were going to write legislation where all vitamins and minerals and herbal supplements had to be prescribed or go through a drug approval process, if you can imagine. So for their greed, which is what those companies are based upon, in my opinion, because of their greed, they were trying to shut down all of these supplements that we use that makes us so healthy. So the senior senator in the U.S. Senate today was Senator at that time, that's Orrin Hatch, and he and Hawken from Iowa got together and they crafted up DSHEA. And it was they said at the time, of any issue that had ever come before the legislature in the United States, in Washington, D.C., this had the greatest number of people writing in and calling of any piece of legislation that had ever been enacted, because people all over the United States were outraged that Big Pharma and Big Medicine was trying to take our right to know, choose, and use products that were good for our health, natural products that occurred in nature or occurred in our body, and they wanted to restrict that so they could mark them up higher and be the only ones to sell them. Well, it didn't work, and we got DSHEA. Now, what DSHEA allows you to do is the patent laws are still there. So someone can take a patent. I mean, you could take water and patent it for some uses if it had never been used for that before, but you can't patent the molecule H2O, so it can be used in other things. It could be used in things that, and I'm showing you how simple this is. Water could be used in things and patented because it would be unique in this application. But if you used it in a lot of other things, or you made a product even similar to it, as long as you didn't make that biological claim, if you said it supported it, you're legal. Now, I've gone to a great deal of extent to explain this to you, and we're going to have to follow it very carefully. But DSHEA allows us, and this is what the law says, you cannot use any of the clinical studies on ingredients that are in your products and publish them on any type of advertising material, be that the web or printed literature or any advertisements that you do. You cannot do that. What you can do, however, is put them in a separate section from them, and you can refer people that are reading about the article to refer back to these scientific studies if they want validation of what they can do. And there's a couple of preconditions here, and this call's going to go a little longer because this is probably the most important one of your entire life and probably will be in the history of Sisel. So anyway, what happens is you can put articles. If someone does a magazine article on one of the ingredients or even your own formula, you can put it on the back page. And if you go into a health food store and say that you went into a GNC store, You could look at products that were on the shelf, and you would look at ingredients. You wouldn't know what they are, and they'd say, "What does this do?" And they say, "Well, you can go look in our library, which is set apart from the advertising. Can't even be next door to it. Set apart, and you can go look at the studies yourself, and then you can make your determination if this is something you want to use." That's why they call it the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act. So it's your health. You can educate yourself on it, and then you can choose to use this or not. Now, I hope you've written a lot of this down because you need to pass it on to others, and I'll be doing something that way with it. So let's get to the formula. Wouldn't it be wonderful if just within weeks or months that your health could be on the level of where you were in your 20s again? Not only would the feeling be there, but the biological indicators could be there. Now, we're going to have to theorize on this to put it out to you, but the studies are going to show powerful support for it. And so we're going to say it supports this, supports that, does other things. We'll make it clear enough so you get a clear picture of what is really going on, but we have to be there's a company that's invested $200 million in just one of these ingredients, and they have a really tough patent. And you can imagine how they're going to protect their investment. So we're not going to violate that. And it's simple to go around it if you don't do certain things, and that's what we figured out how to do. Perhaps in this world it's not as applicable saying as it used to be, but the saying was, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Well, there's more than one way to skin a patent, and we've skinned around it and done it legally, and we have to closely adhere to what's there. So we're going to theorize, because there's two things. We could make the claim for our formulation that it returned your biological indicators, all of them, that you could test for, to where like you were in your 20s again. But what that would require is we take our entire formulation, submit it to the FDA, and for their review. Then after they were through the review process, we could go ahead and use it. But folks, it ain't that simple. They'll take a look at the study because they say you can't say it does it because of all the individual ingredients that do this. They might change the formula. Now, yes, that's true. That could happen. But what person in their right mind would do something like that, or company? But nonetheless, they say, the total performance of the formulation might be or contradict what you say that it's doing and what the ingredients are doing. Okay, they're out, and they have a certain amount of validity to it. So what happens, the FDA, in its infinite lust for power and control, and its support of Big Pharma, who funds almost everything that they do, they say, well, you've got to have the formulation reviewed and tested and clinical proof, and then you can say it does what it does. So if you went through a study, which would cost you millions of dollars to do, and take probably a couple of years to get it there and then submitted to them, what's going to happen, I believe, which happens, I think, with almost everything that I've seen, is they're going to say, this study is not conclusive enough. You've got to do some more studies. And I've seen formulations that have gone through 50 or 100 studies to validate what the FDA is insisting that they do in order to make the claims. Well, the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act allows you to see those articles, to see what supports what ingredients we're talking about that are working, and you to self-educate and make a conclusion is, this is what I want to use. So let's get on to the product and the formulary. And I'll tell you in terms that we'll be more specific in literature to a degree, legal degree, but that you can use. So if you imagine, let's say that you're 40, 50, 60, even 70 in your 70s, those years, what happens is you are aging. Now, something you should write down is aging is not a disease. The FDA does not say that, in fact, they have a ruling otherwise, that aging is not a disease. Therefore, it doesn't fall under the drug, unless you violate it, under the drug laws. So it's what you say, not what it actually can do, that matters with aging. And aging is simply two things, if you want to put it down this. It is decay caused from many things we breathe, eat, drink, put on our bodies, and from the environment, and sunlight, a lot of airborne pollution, all of those things that go into our body. And the biggest factor that ages us is our own metabolism that goes on within our body at the cellular level in the stem cells. And so stem cells are the key issue in this, and you need to really write this down, because everything we're doing is supporting the stem cell. The stem cell is like the chicken that lays the egg. And as stem cells produce a lot of cells when they're younger, and as you get older, they start to slow down and produce less and less and less. So there's two factors involved here. They're slowing down because of decay that's happening within them, and that decay causes degeneration. So this is the theory. This isn't the theory of aging. I guess you can say theory, but this is what aging is. It is decay and degeneration, and that's it. So aging can be treated. It's not a disease. And we have a super treatment that people have longed for but thought was a fallacy is now a reality. That which is science fiction is real science now, and we have it in this formulation. But there's no silver bullet. Not one ingredient does it all, and you'll see these other companies advertising it on one ingredient. Well, I think much more comprehensively, I guess, than they do, or there's a financial barrier there that's keeping them from going on and doing everything that could be done. But we manufacture. We buy direct. We can buy as cheap as pharmaceutical companies can on anything, anywhere, because we have the massive buying power to do so. And we have our own laboratories, and I'm the head of the R&D department, and I have a desire to make things the best that they can be made, unequal to anything else. And my great desire is to bring out something that has never been done before, and to give you but one that is not just done before, one that is the most exciting thing possible that you could ever imagine, and for us to have it exclusively, at least to as much a degree as possible. And I can tell you this, there's no network marketing company that has anything, even with that I know of, even with one of these ingredients. Why? My reason is, I believe, because of the patents. And these companies want to sell it. They'll sell it to you, but your minimum order can go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single ingredient. And so they're really trying to restrict the market. And what that does is it not only restricts the market, if anyone would buy it, they would use it in an amount that would be minimal rather than maximal because of the high cost. But it's kept MLM out of it, because 98% of the MLMs don't make the products that they sell, that's my guess, with it. And by the time they look at the enormous cost of these things in maximum concentrations, they're going to say, whoa, we got to use a minimal amount. And even then, it's probably too expensive for other network marketing companies to use, especially when you use the array of them of what we have. So now, let's shift gears and let's go into what this product can support within your body. Everything in aging is based upon, well, not quite, but about everything in aging is based upon the stem cell. The stem cell replaces duplicates themselves and replaces the cells in your body that wear out. Some are gone very quickly. Some stem cells, like from skin, in 1 to 3 months are gone. Others, like in the heart or the liver or the brain, takes maybe up to 3 years to be gone, depending on it. So as your production of stem cells go down, the loss of stem cells may be higher than the number that you're replacing. And so that's degeneration. You are degenerating. And if you needed, let's say you needed, just has no relevance to anything. Let's say you needed 100,000 stem cells a day, and you could, because there's 100 trillion cells in your body, but stem cells make them all. But if you need 100,000 a day and you were producing 80,000, you see you're losing about 20%. But here's what happens. People in their degeneration, after about the age of 25, it's 23 in women, 25 in men, you've peaked. And then science estimates that you lose between 8 and 10% of your biology to degeneration every 10 years. So think of this. If you are 10 years old, or 35, let's say, you've lost, for round figures, we'll use the 10% because it's easy math. You've lost 10%. You're 90% of what you were. At 45, you're 80% of what you were. At 55, you're 70%. At 65, you're 60%. At 75, you're where? 70% of what you were. And then when you add decay and the damage that's done on that, it accelerates it even further. So that gives you good concepts on the principles of aging. So if aging is not a disease, how do we end the decay? How do we increase or support regeneration? The body has the ability to do it, but it's wearing out. Within the stem cells itself, it looks like an egg with a yolk. And so there's the egg, the cytoplasm. It would be like the whites, and the nucleus would be like the yolk that's in it. And that's where all your DNA is. Except sprinkled by the hundreds throughout every cell are little, they call it organella, part of the organism of the cell, and they're called mitochondria. Mitochondria are really the key to this factor because they produce the energy that your body needs to live, and also beyond that to duplicate and to really activate the biological processes that causes repair. It's just like, but as that goes down, and it does go down. Here's why: because the mitochondria is like a car engine. Car engine takes in a fuel source, gasoline, diesel, something like that, and oxygen, and ignites it and releases the energy through oxidation. They split the oxygen molecule, which is O2. With that, there's a lot of toxicity that comes from it. That goes out the tailpipe. In your body, the mitochondria do the same thing. They take in oxygen. They also take in a fuel source, and usually it's sugar or glucose or carbohydrates. It can be less if you don't have enough in your body. It will actually take proteins, and you break them down. They're not as efficient, but if you're very aged, that's what does happen. So anyway, as they oxidize that and release the energy, it goes out and it forms. Catch this now. It forms, at the end result, it forms hydrogen. And hydrogen is the energy that comes from the sun. There would be no life on Earth without hydrogen coming from the sun. It's in every single cell in your body. Now, we've produced the hydrogen water machine for you, and you can drink diatomic hydrogen water, and it goes through every cell in your body in not very long time, just a few minutes. It's in every cell in your body, and it enriches it with the ultimate thing that it should be producing, and that is energy. Hydrogen goes through a process. And through this process within the cell, within the mitochondria itself, this process goes through several different stages where the hydrogen molecule or atom is passed on from one stage to another to where it goes into ATP. And many of you have heard of ATP as being the energy molecule of the body. Well, it sort of is. It's like a battery, but the battery must elicit electricity. And so ATP, what does it do? It releases hydrogen. And that's the energy that does everything. So if you notice one thing, and I'll go clear to another point. If you're degenerating 8 to 10% every 10 years, how many people do you know around you have really thin skin, badly wrinkled skin, that you look at their arms or their bodies and it's skin on bone. There's very little muscle tissue left. That's all caused from degeneration and decay that makes you your functions not work or damages the ones that are, so they slow down. All that's the cause of it. So, in theory, let's say you went back to where suddenly you're sitting there at 60 years old and things are not the same. You don't have near the energy levels that you had when you were 20. Your body mass is, you might be fatter, but your lean muscle and the organs and everything, the brain itself is shrinking significantly with that. And you don't feel like you're 20. You can't do the things you did with 20. And what would happen to a person if suddenly your whole biology was transformed over into where you're producing all of the things, all of the biological markers, the biomarkers that you could take in a test to test your health, your metabolism, and the levels of these things that are so key were suddenly like they were back in 20. You're in 20s again. What would happen? Well, I'll tell you what would happen. It would support, through this array of things that are done, tremendous increases of energy. You would wake up in the morning after a period of time, because remember, you've degenerated and decayed, and we've got to get through that. But since that's aging, we can give the body things to overcome decay and to overcome degeneration. If we can increase regeneration and we can end most of the decay, what can we be if our biological factors are at age 20? Well, we might be chronologically 50 or 60, but our biology is operating like we're 20, and we start to constrict back into the person that we were. And so we're supporting, by this system, the ability, which the body has within itself to do it, as with, we'll call these super nutrients. With these super nutrients, so that your body wants to produce the muscle that it's lost. And if you're in your 20s, as you know, you produce and grow and all of that muscle. Now maybe those growth factors that grew you are gone or diminished is what they are. But suddenly if you put high energy in it, we're going to support the restoration of muscle size and configuration. Think about that. We're going to support skin. We're going to support hair, support skin growth, hair growth, and it goes beyond that. We're going to support the improvement within the brain, within the liver, within the heart, within all of the organs that you have within your body, so that they are regenerating, not degenerating. Now their regeneration is higher than their degeneration, so now they're regenerating, becoming larger, stronger, and all of those things. Kind of fascinating, isn't it? And so what are you becoming? You are becoming a younger you. Not a new you, a younger you. You're returning to those days of yesteryear, to where you now can be much more than you are. And the inevitable for where you're going rapidly, because these 8 to 10% every 10 years keep compounding upon themselves. And when you reach the age in your 70s, you're usually somewhere about 20 years before you'll contract the disease that kills you. And our biology, our genetic code, now they map the human genome, says we have the ability to live somewhere up around 150 years if it just everything was operating perfectly. But since it's not, since it's degenerated, you'll find people that are in their 60s and 70s are somewhere, we estimate, at 20 to 25% of where they were when they were 20. So if you get all these bioprocesses going, all of these things start to happen. Energy levels, we're supporting a great increase in energy levels. And see, we're not talking about specifics. These aren't drug claims. It's not artificially doing it. Your body has its own mechanisms in order to do that. And so we're supporting that. So what happens to you? About everything starts to happen to you. And you start growing younger. See, if that's aging. Aging can be growing older. So if we can reverse aging, we'll support growing younger. And so you can start growing younger and younger. Now we have TSX, which really plays into this well because you have to have telomeres to produce new cells. So you can complement it greatly with that and a few other things. And you have certain conditions that have happened to you. So supplementation of other things like super omegas, like for Restore, things like that, yeah, they're great on top of it. But if you can't get the youthful regeneration going, then you can take those and they'll help somewhat. But they work with the biology in whatever condition of decay and degeneration it's in. So we're going to end the decay, we're going to end the degeneration, and now we're going to do much more. And that leads me into the two other aspects of it. The first thing is we're talking about the production of energy. Suppose that the ATP production that you had, which releases the hydrogen, was increased 3 or 4 times right now, or within a few months, of what it is. Can you imagine the feeling that would be within your body? Can you imagine the things that power is like taking the gas pedal and pressing it down further to get more power? You can't do it before it was blocked. Now you can press it down and you get more power to do all of those things. You'd feel great. You'd start looking great. You would start seeing things that are aged becoming younger within you. And here's what some of these ingredients in it were tested. And they were tested on animal models. Now there's some human testing that's gone on. But in that, they found that as a cell gets old, a stem cell, it has decayed and degenerated. And many of the stem cells are at a very low production level. Some of them have died, and some of them have become senescent or dormant with that. So you can see how this is adversely affecting it. And it's because of that oxidation that takes place in the mitochondria. It creates a single oxygen, which is very hungry for other electrons, so it pairs or it oxidizes and damages and destroys your biological system. So damage or destroys. Now that damage is there. But the body has the ability, the stem cell has the ability within it to actually repair itself. It's just like when you're 20 and you cut yourself, or you're younger, you heal very fast. When you're 50, 60, 70, it takes a lot longer. Why? It's because the biological functions are operating like you're 50, 60, 70 instead of 20. But if you're 50, 60, 70 and they're operating like you're 20, what would happen? Massive regeneration, a great feeling. All of those virtues that you thought were lost forever, you're on the road and you're going back fast to making them happen. So here's what happened in the studies that they've done on mammals with it. And the whole system of stem cells is virtually identical in all mammals, including humans. So they took a look at an old cell. It's very easy to tell an old cell in in an aged individual. And so they looked at it, and the cell isn't round and oval like it was, nor is the nucleus. It's all kinds of, it's like crinkled up with it, and that's what's happened. The nucleus has, the stem cell itself has, and it's full of all kinds of contaminants that come into it that the cell has not been able to excrete. So it's not functioning well. Let's say if it's functioning, it's not functioning well because of the effects of aging with that. And oxidation is the big damager within the cells, although you get it from things that come into your body, but it's like your engine wears out in your car, doesn't it, right? Because you're oxidizing all this gasoline to create this energy, and it wants to rust and corrode. And your oil pan fills up with sludge, so you got to change your oil every so often because there's so much sludge from all of this contamination. Well, your stem cell works on the same kind of basis as this. And I'm sorry I'm running so long, but this is the most important discovery, I think, in the history of human health, and it is the major breakthrough in all of science. This is the single greatest product that has ever been introduced, I believe. This is my opinion, of course. I can't, FTC would like to come back and say prove it, so it's in my opinion. So in my opinion, in the history of human health, nothing has ever even come close to this. This is the greatest discovery of all time. And in MLM, this is the really big one that will create fortunes and success and incredible health, wealth, and happiness. And this is the one. So let's go back into the cell again, which has been so damaged. They put in mice, we'll use a mouse. Mice studies usually the first one they do. They did it in mice, rats, guinea pigs, rabbits. Then they went into primates and now into humans. And they found the situation was the same. That an old cell, in the smaller sizes, like a mouse that only has a lifespan of 2 years, in those, within weeks, the old cells in old mice who were about 2 years old, ready to die, had repaired and regenerated themselves to where they were indistinguishable from young mice. Indistinguishable. Not just in how they looked, but how they functioned, what they could do. And so these scientists then took mice that were about 6 months old, which are young, healthy, vigorous mice, and took the ones that were age 2, which are starting to die off, and with the group that was age 2, they gave some of these ingredients, or one of them to it, and I won't say which one, but they gave it to it, and we'll have those studies, and within weeks, of course, their cells were indistinguishable in the old mice from the others, but they didn't put the young mice on this ingredient in this test, but what they did put them on was the treadmill. And so they put the young mice on a treadmill, and they put the old mice, or right at the far end of aging, on a treadmill. But the old mice had all of their cells regenerated, and they had these nutrients, these super nutrients, into their system. And so as they turned the treadmill on, when all of the young mice were exhausted, the old mice, chronologically old now, with this ingredient, went 2 to as much as 4 times longer on the treadmill, and this was with no exercise, than did the young mice at 6 months. Now, isn't that astonishing? They had regenerated themselves to the point of where they were like young mice again, and they said these old mice, which are very easy to see, if you mix them now with the young ones, it was indistinguishable of which mouse was which for its age. Hair color, size, skin, eyesight, hearing, energy, muscle configuration and shaping was returned to what it was in the young mice. Now, it's proving that to be that way all the way through. There's a lot more I could say about this, and I'm going to say some, but we're getting down in time. We're going on an hour for this meeting, but you can see how significant this is. So what we've done is we've taken a look at everything that has to do with life extension at the cellular level of the stem cell with it, and we found there are three big issues. The first one is regenerating the energy. So with these nutrients, the cell, just like we're talking about a scratch healing so quick, we have the nutrients that supports the natural ability, catch this, supports the natural functions that are already there in the stem cell to regenerate and repair itself, as it does when you're younger and continues through the end of your life, except it diminishes so much that the decay and the degeneration overcome it. Now you give the super nutrients, those systems can now function like they were younger, and they can start to perform that way, and you can feel the effects of it because of this massive support to create tremendous amounts of energy. And what this does, it'll increase 3 or more times as much ATP, and that means it equates to as much hydrogen, which is the end result, what you want to get, as it normally would when you were younger. Can you imagine? So if you're 20, what would this do if you're taking it? You don't need it for aging, but what would it do? It increases stamina so much. And if you're into fitness, this actually, and I won't go through the mechanism, but it supports the body so you generate a lot less lactic acid so that you don't have the soreness or the tiredness. And in studies, these are animal studies, but in animal studies, they could work it out at about 20% higher level and go for about 20% longer at that level than animals that were not. So there it goes right back into fitness, right? So anyway, and then when you're talking about supporting muscle configuration and all those things, it's great. So what we've done is we're going to allow the body, we're going to support the body's natural functions in the stem cell so that it can regenerate, repair itself, and start producing large amounts of energy. Now, there's a lot of other factors that are involved because many of the stem cells have died off. The stem cells have ability to reproduce themselves, but in many cases, it's either so low for what's being lost that it can't keep up. Now, the next thing that comes in is this supports the body's natural ability to increase new stem cells. And within all of the cells, it supports the body's natural ability to create more mitochondria, 3 and 4 times more mitochondria. If you can imagine, it's like putting 3 or 4 engines on your car. If you can imagine that. That's what's happening within the cells in the studies that they conducted on animals. I have to keep going back to that. But we support that system so that that you can regenerate, so that the stem cells, which are doing it, suddenly can regenerate optimally, and you start creating lots of new stem cells where you are creating, and now you'll create a lot more because of these super nutrients, and then you'll have them, and then it goes to the mitochondria and the wearing out, just like your car engine wears out. It has a mechanism within itself to overhaul itself, to repair itself, and these super nutrients do just exactly that on your old mitochondria. Now, if you didn't think that wasn't enough to do it, and it really is to build a gigantic company, there's 2 other aspects of cellular aging, stem cell aging. We don't talk about the rest of the cells because they're a consequence of what stem cells replace. So in stem cells, you take in nutrients and you oxidize it, and the cell produces something. It might duplicate and produce a new cell, or it might produce a hormone, or it might produce a protein, or things like that. But everything that goes into a cell, all of the nutrients that are used to do this biological process, there's waste, just like exhaust goes out your tailpipe from combustion. Same thing is in the cell. So the cell has enzymes that break it down into small enough particulate so that it can leave the cell and be discharged as waste from your body. However, some things can't be done, especially toxic heavy metals, but other components too. So you start accumulating what is called cellular garbage. And it's just like if you think of your house, every year you took out 99% of all the garbage that came in that you created in your house and left that 1%, what would happen after 40 or 50 years? You could hardly even function in your house. Can you imagine what your sink and your kitchen table and the floor and the couches and everything? There'd be mountains of it there. That's the kind of thing that happens within the cells. And that is called, that accumulated material, that cellular garbage, is lipofusum. It's Lipofusum. And that is like sludge in the motor oil of a car, and it just keeps building up, and it affects the ability of nutrients even to get through all of that gombo, and it affects the biological processes from happening because they have to push through it somehow. And so this accumulated lipofusum builds up and builds up. Well, therein comes the second system that we have. We have a series of ingredients that have been shown to provide the body the nutrients to create, as it naturally does, the types of enzymes that will break down the lipofusum, and it empties the garbage. And so your cells start cleaning up with all of that. And so now you have the energy functioning the way it is, and it's cleaning up. And now we go into the third and final stage of what we have. And some of you people may have heard of sugaring. It's bad for skin. Wrinkle is sugaring. It's called glycation, Glycation. So glycation is a major cause of aging because it caramelizes or crystallizes proteins, and it happens within the cell. It happens within the skin, and that's the big thing is with skin wrinkles. And aging is glycation, but it's happening in your heart, in your brain, and you're losing volume and function and everything. So glycation is a big problem. It's like you're spraying everything down with something sticky that goes hard, and now it can't function the way that it's supposed to. And so we have a third system of ingredients that have been proven to remove glycation from the cells. So this goes in with the cells and gives the cells the super nutrient it needs to do what it's already been doing to a certain degree, but diminishing, but now to go into high gear to get rid of the glycation. So now we're taking all of this glue that has stuck all these things together, and we're getting rid of that too. So we've undone all the, so this is the theory of our product. It will have undone the glycation that is damaging the function of many of the protein and structures within your body, or within the stem cell, and throughout, and of course that means throughout your body, that are causing glycation and those kind of products. What's that going to mean for skin? I can tell you what, a lot. But that's, okay, our skinners are out there that are out of organ. What do you think it's going to do for brain? A lot, a real lot. What's it going to do for your heart, for your liver, for your lungs? A lot. Muscles, a great deal. Bone, all of those things. And so all of that's removed. Now we've dumped the cellular garbage, the lipofusum. And what we've done is we've remodeled all of the mitochondria, or at least this formulation has, so that old mitochondria is now indistinguishable from young, and your old stem cells are indistinguishable from young stem cells. There is no way possible to see the difference because there is none, virtually none, between an old stem cell and a young cell. And you've created a lot more young cells, and the stem cells that have become dormant, we support them to become active again. So your energy is just flowing and generating. The cell is clean of these contaminants and the tissues that have been oxidized and damaged. The DNA within the stem cell itself, if it has the proper nutrients to it, will remodel and repair that. And in the animal studies, and you can make your own conclusion because of A.G.E, it has done just exactly that. Well, here we are sitting in an hour. I've gone through a lot of this. There's more to it than that, but just think about that. So here's my recommendation to you. It's going to come out next week. And this is the one that is so hot, it's electrifying. No MLM has it. And you know, one or two of these ingredients are being sold commercially, but they're in such small quantities because of the high cost. We're at the maximum. I've sat down and this is the most expensive formula that I have ever built. It costs so much more. It's 2, 3, 4 times in ingredients or formulas that I thought were very expensive. This one really costs a lot. So we had to do a few things, but we have to keep it within a marketable price for you, so it's restricted. And I talked to one person who has one of the patents and one of the ingredients, and he wanted me to invest. And he said, we're selling this, just a single ingredient, to Hollywood celebrities for $500,000 a year. I said, holy cow. He said, well, they get the money, they will pay it. I said, you can't do that. I said, I got to get it down where it's marketable. He said, well, I think we can get it down to where it costs about $25,000 a year. See, that's what the market's like with this, but not with Sisel, with what we've done. So I've taken this and I've got a price point on it that is tremendous. What we're going to do is there's three phases of pricing. There's the distributor price. There's the PV. That's the product value at which you qualify for. And then there's the BV, and that's the commissionable value or the amount that you get paid your commissions on. So with this one, we've had to structure 3 in order to make enough money to keep this thing going. And I'll tell you what, we've cut it thin. So for most of you, you'd be sitting there, and this costs $100 and what per bottle. We've got it for a distributor price of $60, and it pays commission on $40. So it's $40 BV. That's a big commission off a product right there. And your PV is right at $50. In other words, what we've done is we made it so that if somebody wants to buy it, just that, they can qualify at the $50 level. So it makes it very easy to get people on that want to share it with other people. You buy a bottle a month, and you're going to be able to share it with other people who can actually, as they share it with their friends and neighbors, they can make some commission on and further reduce their price. Reduce the price of their product and start making more money and perhaps get more highly motivated to do it. So this product is for who? It's for everyone. And the pricing is so darn reasonable. It's really stunning when you see what this is and understand it. But I think you've got the picture of it right now. So this formulation, as I said earlier, the total effects is much greater than the sum of its parts, because each one of these different components is multifaceted, and each one does glycation, lipofuscin removal, and regeneration and restoration of the stem cells themselves, including the mitochondrial damage, mutations, all of those kinds of things. What do you think your potential to fight disease with this is going to be? Enormous. So this is the magnitude of this product. This has never been seen before in the marketplace for human health. This is as close to the fountain of youth as is possible. If you're using this in good supplements to support the other biological processes that you have to have bricks and mortar to build a house, this is the carpenter that can rebuild it for you with it. So here you are ready to go. The last thing I'm going to tell you on this, because it's been a long call, but I think if you've been listening, taking some notes, you'll realize this is the most important call of your life for your own personal health and for building wealth in this company. So when you take it, we estimate, depending on age, of course, and that's the amount of decay and degeneration in your body, but you'll start feeling effects. Some people might feel it within a couple of weeks. We think within 2 to 3 months, virtually everybody should feel the difference. And so what we're talking about is cause and effect. If this is affecting all of this energy, all of this activity in the stem cells, are you not going to feel better because of it? And what is that feeling? It's the feeling of being in your 20s again. And I believe this is what we've theorized. This is what we're believing will happen with this formulation, that you can go back in time biologically and also with that feeling that was there, and you can have it once more, and you can do it within just a few months. Now, the last point before I click off is that if you want to double up, it's actually a pretty good idea. If you would double up for 2 or 3 months, then you would be in warp drive, because the more the better with this. Now, it does cost more money. If it's costing $120 for 3 months, yeah, you've paid an extra $60 for 3 months, and then you go into the normal one. But what you've done is massive regeneration to get yourself back faster and better, and then you can cut back. So my recommendation for you that are over a certain age, especially over 50, 40 I'd say, but especially over 50, put yourself back on the fast track, double up on it for about 3 months. Wow. The kind of person I believe, I have to say I believe, I think, I theorize, because we have to keep out of the drug issue with this. I believe you're going to feel like you're in your 20s again, and life will never, ever be the same for you, both physically, energy, restoration of biological systems you thought were long gone are there, but the super nutrients were there to do it. And this is the big one. This is the mother of all health bombs. This is the gigantic one of all times. And now you will have it, and you alone will have it. And not a company in MLM that I know of even has one of these ingredients of the dozens that we have within this formulation that they're using at all. It's inconceivable. Most of them don't even know it. But here we are, thundering ahead. We're like the Trekkies of MLM. We're going where no one has ever gone before and doing things that have never been done and seeing things that have never been seen. But the science is here, and it's heavy and powerful and proven, and we've taken all of those collectively together and put them in a product which we call the A.G.E pill. And we're saying A.G.E. because that helps us with our claims, and A.G.E has to do with, it says age, but when you have the dots with it, it also stands for accelerated glycation, and it's products. And whether that means you get a lot of glycated products within your cell. So we're keying it on the one so we can say A.G.E, but it's that and much, much more. So here you go, folks. If you're not cranked for the weekend and the holiday coming up, I want to wish you a happy 4th of July for those of you that are Americans, and hope you go out and really enjoy it. But if you listen to this recording a few times, if you've taken good notes, and if you apply it and go out, I think you'll be virtually unstoppable. And when you see the support that we'll have studies on our science page for it, referring back, and we'll have the way that you can legally say these things without getting any of the legal or patent issues with it. But we do have the ingredients in there, and we do have them in such concentration and such a diversity that this gives massive support to you regenerating and restoring yourself in body function and feelings. We theorize to where you will be like you were in your 20s once more.